Welcome back to Remembering America 250. I'm your host, Matthew Heberbrand. In today's episode, we revisit one of the stars of our very first episode, Ethan Allen, whose ingenuity and willingness to take risks won for the American Patriots control of Fort Ticonderoga in New York. Those very same characteristics would lead to much different and more tragic consequences 250 years ago today. Back on June 27, 1775, the Continental Congress authorized Major General Philip Schuyler to take command of Fort Ticonderoga and Crown Point, investigate the actions of Governor Guy Carleton of Quebec, to investigate the actions of the Canadian Indians, and, if he found it practical and not disagreeable to the Canadians, to immediately take possession of Fort St. John, Montreal, and any other part of Canada. Schuyler very soon found that an invasion of Canada to be practical. Guy Carleton had at this point begun fortifying St. John and recruiting Mohawk Indians to fight against the American Patriots. How disagreeable to the Canadians an invasion by the American Patriots would be is still a matter of historical interpretation. And that's where Ethan Allen comes into play. Major General Schuyler claimed to be ill and appointed Brigadier General Richard Montgomery to lead the invasion. By early September 1775, American forces were concentrated on Illinois, and both Ethan Allen and Major General Brown were appointed to recruit Canadian volunteers while Montgomery waited for Patriot reinforcements. The two managed to recruit 300 Canadians to their cause, which leads us to wonder exactly how disagreeable an invasion was to the Canadians if 300 Canadians were willing to join up with the Patriot cause. By September 17th, Montgomery had become a siege at St. John, and he instructed Allen to secure the bank of the Lawrence River to prevent Governor Carleton from sending reinforcements there. Allen, however, had different ideas. He convinced Brown that it was wise to directly attack Montreal. He had some intelligence that indicated that Carleton's forces were concentrated on St. John's and that a minimal army was waiting in Montreal. However, the two had split up their forces. Allen only had 110 men, which he led north of Montreal and crossed the St. Lawrence River somewhere around here, just north of Longe-Pointe. And he made that crossing the evening of September 24, 1775. But Brown had failed to appear. Carleton learned of Allen's movement and sent 35 regulars, 200 volunteers, and a number of Mohawk warriors to stop Allen's forces. When Allen learned of the superior forces approaching, his first thought was to recross the river. But that became impossible as the British forces descended upon them. Once the first shots were fired, Allen's Canadian troops turned tail and ran. Allen valiantly pressed his men to defend themselves in an orderly retreat, engaging in defensive combat while retreating over a mile here near Longe-Pointe. By that point, Allen had 17 Americans and 16 Canadians who had not retreated, 10 of which were wounded. Allen had no choice but to surrender. The hero of Fort Ticonderoga would not participate in any other battles of the War of American Independence and would serve as a prisoner of war until 1778 when he was released as part of a prisoner exchange. But Allen would still have an impact on the war. He kept a journal detailing the conditions of his confinement, which was published after his release and was used as propaganda against the British. So today, let's commemorate Ethan Allen and the sacrifices he made for our country's independence. Tune into future episodes to learn more about the American invasion of Canada. And until then, God bless you and God bless America.